Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's performance will include jukebox musicals, giant flip-flops, and misunderstandings of biblical proportions. In this, the second annual Fake Saints Final Four, here on Created Things.
Hello and welcome to Created Things. I am today's guest host, Kyle Meineke, producer, executive producer. With me today is the beautiful, sexy Jacob Flores Popcheck. And also with us today is Father Gabriel Toretta. Ooh.
You know, I was temporarily upset that that I didn't get the first introduction, and then I got the second one. I thought, well, I could take that.
There you go.
Yeah. He told me he had thought of that in advance. He was like, I got to call him Father Gabriel Toretta.
That's because, you know, somebody's got to be a babe here, and I guess it's just me.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, I'm very excited to have you back on Created Things here, Kyle. As you said, you are our illustrious executive producer. You edit these podcasts, and it's been a while since you were last on. But it is March again, and that means that it is time for the second annual edition of tradition we started just last year, as in second annual, where because we are sports deficient, we don't follow along with March Madness. We instead do a bracket for our favorite, we will explain this in a moment, fake saints.
Yeah, which is a thing. Just deal with it.
This was our dumbest episode we'd ever done. It also predictably turned out to be our longest episode at almost exactly 3 hours. And it was extremely successful. People actually surprisingly loved it. We got a lot of really lovely feedback and a lot of really lovely suggestions for future iterations of this. So it was important to me that we do it again this year. And Kyle, just like last year, he served then as our impartial judge. Father Gabriel and I presented our brackets to him, and he was the judge of the winner. And so we thought, all right, well, we got to keep with the tradition and bring our good buddy Kyle back on the air to wield his power indiscriminately once again.
Yeah, I don't remember who won last time,
biases
but
this time.
Yeah, that seems fair. You have to be unbiased in my favor. That's an unbiased comma in my favor. That's important.
How are you feeling about it this time, Kyle? Are you ready? Are you ready to go?
I'm ready. You know I don't like being here, but here I am.
Which means you got to be ready. You got to be ready. You look ready. You're looking ready. You got a hat on.
Ready.
You do look.
Yeah.
You look very Friday Night Lights. You do look kind of ready for a sports thing. You look like you'd be sports broadcasting right now.
Sportsing.
I am.
You got the beanie. You got the denim jacket. You look nice.
I don't think you guys have watched sports before.
We have never watched sports.
How dare you? I know about sport. I know that it is a thing. Sometimes it has a plural. That's all you need to know. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't watch sports either.
I'm
so
that
you
annoying.
Might be right. I don't know.
I'm that annoying guy at Super Bowl parties that makes like obnoxious, easy theater jokes like, "Oh, when's intermission? Oh, are they playing the sports ball?" Oh. I'm that guy in the corner.
Nice.
Very millennial of you, yeah. Very millennial.
Yeah, I did a thing.
You did.
I did a thing. So, Father Gabriel, you opened us up last year briefly explaining for those uninitiated what we mean by fake saints, and so that people don't have to go back and listen to last year's 3-hour escapade. Would you mind giving us a brief elevator pitch on this today so we can know what we're dealing with?
Yeah, I'll make sure it's worth people's time. So rather than being the 3-hour episode, it'll just be 2 hours and 55 minutes of me talking about this,
Perfect.
which will be great. I think it'll be worth, it's like a 10% discount, which is, still a discount. Right. Yeah. So the point about a real saint is that we say that like, this isn't like a magic person. It's not like a super person with superpowers. It's not somebody who's like, just somehow, totally different from everybody else. Like what we mean is that, that it's a person who has let their life be shaped by one big desire, one big love, and that ultimately it's the love for God that's shaped everything about this person's life. It doesn't mean that they're perfect, doesn't mean that every one of their ideas was correct, or that they never made mistakes, but it means that like everything about their life is fundamentally governed by the love of God, and that like as you go along, that like that just gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and so you become more and more and more sort of like how you become more like a friend. The closer you become, that you become kind of more and more able to sort of think with God's heart and act with God's actions in a certain sense, in the way that's given to you. So that's what we mean just generally by somebody who's a saint, and that we mean that somebody who has done this, like somebody that we call a saint, is somebody that the church has looked at their life after they've died and said like, yeah, actually, we believe first that this person, as soon as they died, they went to heaven. We should say that the desire for God was so strong, and their being made like him was so complete already on the earth when they were just a normal life, that that when they died, there was nothing sort of left to be cleaned out of the closets. There was nothing left to be sort of like healed from like self-inflicted wounds and these kinds of things, but they were just they made a sort of if you can put it this way, a smooth transition from living in the mode that we know it to living in the mode that we don't know, with God. And so that's just what we mean generally when we say somebody is a saint. I mean, properly speaking, just means that somebody who, when they died, it was a smooth transition from a known life to an unknown life with God, with no pause, for cleanup time. When the church says like, okay, this person is a saint, what we mean by that is that like says like that we've looked at this person's life after their death, and basically you're saying that the person's life is a safe pattern for other people to follow, to become so deeply friends with God that they can also become saints, that they can also be healed of their wounds and be made like Christ in a way that begins really intensely on the earth and then is completed totally when you die. So to say that somebody's a saint is to say like, yeah, it wasn't just a one-off, like I think there's a lot of saints that are not, quote, canonized, because in a sense their holiness is kind of a one-off. You say like, yeah, it would be better if nobody else ever tried to imitate that, because it probably wouldn't work. But it worked for this guy, but just, results may vary. Don't try this at home.
More power to that dude.
But better actually just to kind of forget about how he lived, because it was very confusing. But if you have a canonized saint, it says that the church says like, yeah, we know for sure that this person, as sure as we can possibly know, that this person went to heaven when he died, that Christ is giving graces to the world through this person at the present moment, and that their life is a safe pattern to follow in one way or another. Okay, so that's what we mean generally by a saint, both like a canonized, which means that like the church says like, yeah, this is a real person with a real life
on the official roster,
and then uncanonized, which are like, yeah, this person was real, but we just don't really know anything about them, after they died. So that's like real saints. But there is also, well, let me put it this way. I've just finished reading this very large and important mid-9th century book called The Peripheusion on the Nature of Things. And
oh, cool. This sounds like a completely relatable way to explain a concept.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think all of us have spent the last couple of months reading Eriugena. So I think, just connecting with what kids these days are doing with their time. The first sentence, which I'm not going to give you in Latin, but the first sentence is, he says like, when I reflect on the world, I realize that everything that is divided into two things. There's things that are and things that aren't. So we got we got saints.
Brilliantly said.
There's the things that are, and then we've got fake saints. They're things that aren't. That's all I got.
Yeah. There is this weird historical and cultural motif where, because real saints become so commonplace in a given culture, then people start inventing fake saints, often in parody, often to make some kind of, cultural statement, sometimes as a prank. We talked about several from the Middle Ages last year, in which in some cases some people actually believed were real saints, only to find out, no, actually this was like
you got punked,
a prank or a mistake.
Got punked, yeah. Sorry,
right?
Bro.
There were other saints we talked about, like Saint Marinara, the patron or patroness, we weren't sure, of the orphanage where Chuck E. Cheese was canonically
Charles
raised,
Entertainment Cheese,
which is just Charles Entertainment Cheese, exactly, where that was just like a silly, dumb thing that people threw out there. And so the theory that we sort of posed last year, and I think it ran true for all of the fake saints that we brought up, is, these totally fictional characters, whether invented as a scam or whether invented as a prank or just as, a goof or whatever, do actually tell us kind of two things. The first is that they really work as a good litmus test about how a given culture sees spirituality. And most interestingly for Arts Podcast, I think how a culture expresses their spirituality through their art, whether that's music or plays or novels, right? If a culture has like a fake saint in it that features in an art form, that's going to serve as like a really good look into how that culture is responding to just the nature of spirituality. The thing that I didn't quite expect, but that we did really discover by the end of last year's episode, was that, you're talking about this idea of saints as being somebody who longs for God so much that they become kind of increasingly close with him and increasingly like him. And a component of that we were sort of discussing was this idea that as you draw closer in relationship to God, that just as in any relationship, a certain kind of sense of humor bubbles up in that. And a lot of the fake saints that we talked about actually were very devout, real holy people, like joking with each other about fake saints that sort of parodied things that annoyed them in their time period. Very real holy saints being like, wouldn't it be hilarious if, and then writing down, something dumb. And that goes against the grain of what a lot of people infer when they think of quote unquote real saints. But it does give us a window into this humor, this divine humor, this holy foolishness that can come from just having a really close friendship with God. So I found it it was a dumb topic. It still is, but I found it a really rich conversation. And I remember a large part of it really touched you, Kyle, too. We were talking about Saint Mungo from Harry Potter. I remember we were talking about Saint Javelin. I think that was our winner last year. I think that was the one you selected, Kyle, was Saint Javelin, this sort of parody icon that was invented as a symbol of the Ukrainian resistance during the ongoing conflict with Russia. And do you have any hot takes from last year that sort of stuck with you over the course of this time, or anything that you kind of took from Fake Saints episode 1 that you're interested to continue exploring in this episode, bud?
No.
Nice.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, this is what you want. Yeah, it's like anything stick with you, or did it just kind of like vanish into the ether? Well, yeah, it vanished into the ether. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I forgot who I had picked 5 minutes before we started recording. We figured it out. I've changed my mind.
There you go.
Changed my mind since then.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who do you think was robbed? Who do you think should have won instead?
Saint Marinara, for sure.
Saint Marinara?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Goated.
Yeah. I will say that Saint Marinara has probably stuck with us the most. We probably say Saint Marinara, pray for us more than we say anything else.
It's hard not to. Marinara, it's just he or
it rolls
she
off the
or
tongue.
It's just delicious,
rolls onto the tongue, rolls off the tongue.
We still haven't gone to Chuck E. Cheese either. So there's some...
oh my God, you're right. We have... Well, shortly after the episode, Father Gabriel moved to Austria.
Yep.
And I don't think they have... Do they have animatronic restaurants in Germany or Austria?
I can neither confirm or deny.
They have Freddy Fazbear's there, I think, but I don't think they have Chuck E. Cheese.
I gotta wonder. I don't think they would have Chuck E. Cheese, but
they definitely have Freddy Fazbear, right?
Freddy Fazbear?
Yeah, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. You never...
Yeah.
You've never heard of it?
Is this something that like safe, is this like safe to Google or like not safe to Google? Like, what is this?
Oh, it's just a restaurant. It's just a pizza place.
Okay, safe.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, okay.
It's a pizza restaurant from a horror video game.
Really? But it's real.
Yes.
No, it's not real.
No.
I'm just messing with you.
It's a video game where
it's just a meme.
Where it's animatronics come to life in this restaurant and kill everybody.
Oh, seems fair.
And it's yeah. Which
It's
would not
stupid.
have happened if Freddy Fazbear had a saint who would intercede on his behalf like Chucky has.
Made of marinara.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Ew, wait, did we decide that Saint Marinara is made of marinara? Is that what we decided?
Well, I always did.
Oh,
I always
God.
did. Yeah. That's
Oh,
yeah, it's a
no.
funny iconography,
Oh,
really.
I hate
but like
that.
I always did, yeah.
I hate that. Well, because so many saints are depicted like very colorfully with the means of their martyrdom, like with how they were killed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always this bizarre juxtaposition of how serene they look, but then they're like holding what they were killed with,
Like
or how they were
holding
killed.
eyes,
So like
holding
Saint
a knife,
Agatha
holding my
right, Saint Agatha holding her breasts on a plate because she had her breasts cut
like
off,
that.
or
I
like
was like Bartholomew,
somebody holding
like-
their skin
yeah, but
because
this
they were
is Saint
flayed.
Bartholomew holding a gigantic knife and sometimes his skin with the knife and just kind of sometimes looking pretty chill about it, to be honest. Also, sometimes looking like a complete beefcake. It's not just Michelangelo. He can look like a beefcake. It's hilarious. There it is.
But I was sort of imagining that Saint Marinara was perhaps like boiled in marinara sauce or something like that.
It's all possible.
Yeah. But Saint Marinara was so last year.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get into our fake saints for this year.
We got to keep this tight.
Kyle,
Tight.
we do. High and tight. Mwah, chef's kiss. So Kyle, you decide who's going to go first.
Jacob,
There it is.
give it to me.
wow, that
No
was
hesitation. Just go.
Give it
Just, you know what? Get out of here. This is not unbiased in my favor. You disgust me.
No.
So I'm trying to decide which one I should start with, which of my two I'm more excited about. But I'm wearing this Hawaiian shirt and I'm drinking this delicious tiki beverage. I'm drinking a passion fruit margarita right
Ooh,
now,
Nice.
Tiki beverage.
and it's very delicious. And the reason for this is because over the course of the year, I became aware of a fake saint that has just a myriad of products tied in with him or her. A fake saint who embodies the island spirit, who embodies all things tropical and relaxing and escapism. And that, of course, is the saint who comes to us from that most classic of Jimmy Buffett albums, Saint Somewhere.
Oh.
My first saint is Saint Somewhere, an actual fake saint popularized by Jimmy Buffett on that record. It's a really weird thing. So it was really hard to do research into this. Because if you type in Saint Somewhere, you get like a lot of different hits. You get his album, Songs from Saint Somewhere. And I mean, the guy, so for those who are unfamiliar, I don't know how we can possibly explain Jimmy Buffett, but he's basically like a country music singer. If that country music singer only wrote songs for children, but if those songs for children were only about alcoholism in the Caribbean.
Excuse me, we're about enjoying alcohol in the Caribbean.
Well, you'd think so, except a lot of the songs are very honest about alcohol addiction, and we're going to get into that.
Wow. I confess, I've actually,
but-
I'm not sure I've ever heard a Jimmy Buffett song unless he wrote Margaritaville, at which point I've heard Margaritaville.
He wrote Margaritaville.
Okay.
He wrote Margaritaville. Yeah. That's his big one. And with this song, Margaritaville, as well as the like literally hundreds of other albums he's pooped out, he's created a kitsch empire.
True, yeah.
His fans are called Parrot Heads.
Are they? What?
They wear Hawaiian shirts. Yes, and they wear parrot hats and stuff like this. And his concerts are massive. It's Jimmy Buffett. And he plays with the Coral Reefer Band. They tour around the whole world.
Why do you think there's a double meaning in that, or?
No,
no, I think it's just the one.
Just coral, just coral reef, and they are people who are coral. Yeah, they're associated with the coral reef. I got it.
Yeah,
I got
fans of coral reef. Yeah,
I respect that. Yeah,
yeah.
good.
Natives of coral reefs are called reefers. Yeah. And he started with, of course, the albums and the records and the concert tours and everything, and then he pivoted this into restaurants, the Margaritaville series of restaurants,
right?
Where you can go and have a semi-authentic island experience. You can dine in a recreation of his own private plane, which was shot down over Jamaica when Jamaican police thought he must be a drug smuggler.
All seems fair.
You can taste the delicious cheeseburger in paradise from the song Cheeseburger in Paradise. And of course you can have a myriad of overly sweet margaritas.
He also has a beer,
so
doesn't
successful.
He? Isn't Land Shark his beer?
He has many things.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry.
I believe Land Shark is his beer. Yeah. No, it's okay. Land Shark is his beer. He has wines.
Oh no.
He has margarita mixing machines. He has a Broadway musical.
What?
Called Escape from Margaritaville. Where people threw beach balls around the audience. It's a jukebox musical using his music as the basis for it, about a man who is stranded as a bar singer at a resort called Margaritaville and falls in love with a beautiful woman who reignites his spark for life. And it's bad. It's real bad. Basically, everyone thought it was bad.
I'm surprised because it sounds so
basically
good.
No one liked it. Yeah. Normally tourists really love the kind of jukebox musical thing, Mamma Mia, Moving On Out, all that kind of stuff. No, nobody liked Margaritaville. Not the only jukebox musical I'm going to bring up in this episode, by the way.
Okay. I'm going to put you on pause for a second. When you say jukebox musical, do you mean a musical that prominently features a musical using diner?
Musical using pre-existing pop music.
Aha, I knew it. Just like what I said.
The musical Mamma Mia uses all the music of ABBA and roughly strings it into a story.
Can you?
The musical Moving On Out.
I'm confused because you said ABBA and then music, but ABBA music.
Okay,
they just made noise.
Some of us like ABBA.
That's wow. I don't know. Wow. Okay, I guess I'm done with this
episode. Some of us haven't built our whole identity around not liking things like you, Weird Beardy.
Yeah, that's sad. That's sad. Yeah, I can give you tips if you'd like.
And then Moving On Out was a musical stringing together all the music of Billy Joel into a barely coherent plot. And there are a lot of these. And again, not the only one we're going to talk about that feeds into my particular fake saint choices. But yes, he had Escape from Margaritaville, the musical. Did not do well. What did do well and continues to do well for Jimmy Buffett is his chain of resorts.
What?
He has a chain of actual real vacation destinations called Margaritaville, in Mexico, throughout the Caribbean, all over the place. They also have hotel resorts in places that are not tropical, like New York City, where they have built an island inside a hotel in Times Square. And there's a giant Statue of Liberty made out of sand, and she holds, instead of a torch, a margarita. And you can go drink at the It's 5 o'clock somewhere bar, which weirdly does not open till 4 o'clock.
Stop.
And you can have a slice of island paradise. This very weird country western Florida inspired version of a Caribbean that never was. Well, like I said, he did this album, Songs from Saint Somewhere. Just a cute title. But I was like, that sounds like a good fake saint. I want to look into who this person is. I want to look into what the inspiration for this is. And I found that, as I said, a lot of people are using this name. because I guess he didn't copyright it right away.
Sucker.
So there are a couple of breweries named Saint Somewhere Brewery. There are several different Caribbean charter companies all named Saint Somewhere. But he has reclaimed the name because he is trying to build much nicer facilities, a more luxurious resort experience, a whole new chain of resorts, exclusively called Saint Somewhere Resorts.
Amazing.
And the spas at all the existing Margaritaville resorts have been renamed Saint Somewhere Spa. So that meant that to do my research, I had to go to the spa. And I did.
You went to a Saint Somewhere Spa.
I went to a Saint Somewhere Spa here in Florida. I drove there. I made a reservation for the cheapest service they offered, which was not that cheap, at $90. But it was literally the cheapest service they offered.
Show me on the doll.
I got a pedicure.
There you go.
I got a pedicure at the Saint Somewhere Spa, which gave me access to all the facilities, so I was able to sneak around and take lots of photos.
Yes.
And it is bad. It was a bad place. It was like...
Don't say that that's a potential sponsor we're throwing down the drain.
Oh, are we going to get sponsored by Jimmy Buffett
Yes,
Margaritaville?
maybe. It's so bad. It's worth spending all of your money there.
Well, the thing is, that is kind of Margaritaville's whole brand. Like, it's all about being like bad and kitsch and having like a bad cheeseburger and a bad margarita on the beach while you contemplate your life. Like, this is actually kind of the explicit brand. It's supposed to be overwhelmingly tacky. And I was actually disappointed by the fact that the spa itself wasn't tackier. We did an episode on home goods paintings, like these sort of mass produced paintings that you see in Home Goods and like At Home and Walmart and Target and all these kinds of places. And they had a lot of those in the spa, like a little,
predictable,
they had a little station for hot tea that said, "It's always time for tea," on a little canvas next to it. All of the chairs in the spa had a towel on it that said "Son of a Sailor" on them, embroidered in, which I guess is another reference to one of his songs. But it's weird that every single chair had one of those.
Every single one, yeah.
Surely there's
and there was
one
this
other
weird
quote that would work for the towels, you know.
No, it seems like there was the quote they went with. But here's the thing about Saint Somewhere spas. They're not primarily known for their spa services like massages or things like that. There are lots of other places you could go for that. The primary thing that Saint Somewhere spas really cater to is IV drips. That's the primary thing.
I'm going to say I was not expecting that's how you're going to end that sentence. Yeah.
Well, here's why you do that. Because the whole point is you get so drunk at Margaritaville that by the pool and on their little made beach that the next day you're going to be hungover.
So you're going to pay.
So to avoid the worst of that hangover, you need to go spend like $150 to have Saint Somewhere bless you with his mystical anti-hangover powers and get an IV drip while sitting in a chair that says "Son of a Sailor" on it in a dark room.
And presumably not drinking another margarita until the IV drip is done, I guess.
I mean, that would be a healthy choice, but the people who stay at Margaritaville are not known for that.
Are not, yeah. Wow, I was going to say, because you said that the pedicure was $90, and so somehow the IV drip has to be, which was the cheapest thing there, so I was thinking, this somehow has to be the cheapest thing available? To get an IV.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So thing is,
no,
people make mistakes with their lives, and that's what Saint Somewhere is the patron of, I guess, is making mistakes, and just not learning from them. This seems like a bad thing to be patron saint of. It seems like a bad thing in general.
Well, I wanted to know more about what Saint Somewhere was patron saint of, so I did some more research, and I found that Jimmy Buffett is launching this new series of elevated resorts. And this was a description I found. Taking inspiration from the early explorers that named many of the most beautiful islands of the Caribbean. After the saints that guided them safely to the New World, Jimmy Buffett discovered Saint Somewhere under the influence of his own boundless imagination.
Oh, cool. Okay. I'm going to stick with under the influence of, and I'm going to replace his own boundless imagination with a lot of weed and booze.
Yeah, there you go. Somewhere, once defined only by the potential for wondrous experiences and memories and not a point on a map, is now a shore destination. Shore spelled like the seashore, of course, celebrating beautiful sunsets, hidden beaches, and that laid-back island lifestyle. So,
okay.
So that's Saint Somewhere. Saint Somewhere is the patron saint of the laid-back island lifestyle, and I would say specifically of hangovers, because this is the dark, weird thing about Margaritaville, about the Jimmy Buffett Band period that continuously fascinates me. From face value, if you look at a giant Statue of Liberty with two parrots on her shoulders holding a giant margarita instead of a torch, you'd go, this is a celebration of island kitsch and alcohol.
Yeah.
And it is, but the actual lyrics are not at all. A lot of the lyrics are about your life falling apart due to alcoholism. I want to read, this was a song playing at the resort.
Mm-hmm.
I want to pull up the lyrics. The song is called My Head Hurts, My Feet Stink, and I Don't Love Jesus. That was the title of the song.
Okay.
And
there it
goes, and the refrain predictably goes, my head hurts, my feet stink, and I don't love Jesus. Oh my lordy, it's that kind of morning, really was that kind of night. Trying to tell myself that my condition is improving, and if I don't die by Thursday, I'll be roaring Friday night.
Yeah, okay.
And it proceeds to talk about how he spent all of his money on alcohol. He's basically homeless. He's miserable, and drink has destroyed his life, but maybe one more drink will fix it.
Nice.
Okay.
And that's not that different
it might fix
from...
It. It might help him.
This might be the
I guess
thing.
there's
Maybe
only one way to
this
find
margarita
out.
is the thing.
Uh-huh.
And the thing is, like, that's the actual original Margaritaville song as well, right? Wasting away again in Margaritaville, searching for my lost shaker of salt. Some people claim that there's a woman to blame, but I know it's my own damn fault. And it's just literally like he's sitting on a beach, realizing that, like, he's kind of lost everyone he loves, but it's okay because he's going to have one more drink. And tomorrow, I assume, he's going to go to the Saint Somewhere spa to get an IV drip.
Which is going to be tough because he has actually spent all of his money on the overpriced sticky margaritas. And so he's actually going to have to go somewhere else to try to sell plasma to get money to get the IV drip, which is really robbing Peter to pay Paul in a really bad way.
Oh, man, that's a vicious cycle. Yeah, so I really suffered for my art here. Going to this spa and taking all these photos. I saw the coconut scented soap and I laid upon the son of a sailor chair.
Did you become a son of a sailor, do you think? Or?
I think I am.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I think I am a son of a sailor. I think I fully apatheosed. Is that the
it may
right
as well
tense?
be.
I fully apatheosed into a son of a sailor.
But the key question is, how has Saint Somewhere resolved your feet? How are your feet? How are your feet feeling?
Well, my feet feel great, man.
I feel like
I feel really nice. Kyle and I are always complaining about how sore our feet are. We're those two old guys who are always complaining about that.
Do you complain in a better way? Like, do you say that your dogs are barking? You know,
I do. I say my dogs are barking.
That's an important part.
Line.
It's an important part. It's an important part. Yeah. So would you say that this, because this is important for, I don't want to tip the scale because obviously I'm going to win, but like, just in fairness, like, I think it's important for Kyle to know if Saint Somewhere like does a good job getting dogs to stop barking. It's relevant. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, he does. And he does a good job helping you come down off of margaritas, which I know, Kyle, you love a good margarita. You love a good pina colada. You love a good syrupy tropical drink.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that Saint Somewhere is like a good start for you. I think I have an in with you on Saint Somewhere.
The best beverages have corn syrup in them. So
yeah,
I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Father Gabriel likes to argue with everything, but if you make a point that an unhealthy thing is actually good, he'll be like, hell yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I can't argue with that. It's probably right. Yeah, it's probably good. Yeah.
Did you either of you have any idea about this? Have either of you heard of anything like this before?
No, that's just wild. It's like, I don't know. It's like hosting a resort for like drug addicts, and you have like a Narcan section of your resort for when people OD. It just seems crazy to me.
Think about it. Yeah.
To support.
That's a really good business idea.
Wait a second, dear sir.
Come OD over here, you know? God.
Saint Narcanus,
patron saint
of our spa.
That's very Latin.
Yeah.
It's very Latinate.
It seems like it's promoting maybe a little bit of overconsumption. I don't know.
I would never say that.
Naughty.
I would never say that.
Tisk. Ooh, I forgot to mention, they have a giant 10-foot high in the lobby of every Margaritaville. They have a giant 10-foot high statue of a flip flop at the dead center of the lobby. Just standing like upright. And I took a video of myself prostrate worshiping it like a false idol.
Okay, that's nice. Okay, so that's now you really did go all full out for Saint Somewhere. I gotta respect that. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, it was sort of the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego praying in front of the giant chocolate bunny kind of a thing. Only this was a flip.
Yeah, that seems fair. I mean, archaeologists, you know, in the year 3000, when everything made in the late 20th and early 21st century has fallen apart because it was made of like plastic and styrofoam, they're going to discover to their amazement and wonder that one of this culture's most beloved idols mysteriously was preserved intact in situations all over the globe, which is the 10-foot high flip-flop god named Saint Somewhere.
That's just,
can you imagine?
That's Bigfoot's sandal. That's not.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. But there's so many, Kyle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bigfoot had one right foot and no left. He has a peg leg, and he would travel all over the world drinking and doing IV drips.
Or they're just like, holy shit, humans were fucking massive back then. What the hell? What the heck?
I didn't think it's changed that much in 800 years, but I guess it did. Or 1,000. We'll go ahead. Yeah.
I do love though how hard, because like Jimmy Buffett obviously does not run the brand. He like makes money off of it, but he's not like a business owner by any stretch of the imagination. And like it always feels like the brand is in competition with the lyrics, like they're wrestling each other, where the brand really wants to be like fun, tropical vibes, but his lyrics are these very sad alcoholic lyrics. And I think the Saint Somewhere thing is actually kind of a perfect representation of that weird juxtaposition, because as I read to you guys, they're trying to sort of reinterpret this as it's the spirit of somewhere, the unknown point on the map. But that is not what the joke is at all. The joke is that, you know, there are all these Caribbean islands, St. Bart's, St. Lucia, you know, all different named for different saints. And this mofo is so drunk that he's just like, songs from Saint, I don't know, somewhere. Like, that's the joke of the line. That's the joke of the album title, right? That he doesn't even really remember where he is. And then the brand is trying to be like, no, it's about adventure.
Your adventure has become a point on the map that you can stay at for, I don't know, $500 a night or something, whatever it is.
Something ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think Saint Somewhere embodying that. I like the idea of a protective saint spirit guiding me through my hangover, willing me to get through another day. I like the idea of a saint hovering above me as I get my IV drip and drink my corn syrup lime flavored beverage. And I stand by Saint somewhere.
Yeah, this is a deep dive into the Saints of Kitsch. That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. I got one.
All right.
Okay. Do it.
So this is I went back and I consulted ancient manuscripts, followed strange trails, and looked through annals and things, and discovered the records of.
Whoa, we don't do anal on this podcast.
Excuse me, annals, honey. Yes, exactly.
More than one at a time.
It's more than one. It's crazy. And I discovered,
Jacob, you're being really immature right now. It's not.
It's never happened.
Yeah.
I discovered.
Yeah, it's never happened before. Normally, we're very above board.
I discovered Saint Invicem. So, Saint Invicem. This is an early church saint, a very early church saint, known as a follower of Saint Paul. In fact, there's a couple strands of account of how Saint Invicem goes, and exactly what happens in his life. By one account, Paul is kind of constantly trying to settle him. He's a disciple of Saint Paul, and Paul is also kind of trying to get him situated with a Christian community, maybe like a like a kind of early monastery. But it always seems to be running into difficulties. So Invicem, every place that Paul puts him, suffers various trials and tribulations, mostly with everyone else. Everywhere, he's one of these saints where, like, every place where he is, everyone else seems to be the psycho. Which I'm just going to say, like, gentle listener, if you feel like there's a pattern in your life, which is that everywhere you go and every job you get and every circle of friends you enter, after a couple of months, everybody else becomes a complete and utter psycho. I'm just going to say, don't look into that. It's probably right. Just move on to the next group. It's probably right. I'm sure that's fine.
You definitely don't have narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah, you definitely don't have any problems. I'm sure it's fine. Not a big deal. Self-examination is probably bad. Anyway, so this is happening to Saint Invicem over and over and over again. There's even one strand of his vita, his life, that says that the extant letters from Paul are sort of like records of his writings to groups where he's tried to settle Invicem, and he's trying to, like, get them to settle down and to, like, put up with Invicem, which they're not interested in doing. Okay, so you say, well, that all sounds fine, but so this is kind of how Invicem goes. He's sort of a funny saint. He doesn't do much. He is mostly, it seems, put upon wherever he goes. There's a lot of admonishments for other people to, like, take care of Invicem and pay attention to Invicem, and, like, not to hate Invicem and all these things. But he doesn't, like, there's not really a record of what he does very much. And at the end, like, he doesn't even, like, usually, especially these very, very early very, very early saints, like the first century or so of saints. I mean, they're supposed to die. I mean, everyone's a martyr, right? Like, everyone's a martyr, basically, except for St. John. That's the whole point. And spoiler alert. Yeah, everybody dies. It's the worst. But Invicem doesn't. Like, he's not even a martyr. It's just that it seems like everyone's sort of annoyed at Invicem, and then eventually he dies. So, okay, there it is. But in evidence of how his life goes, so here's a passage from one form of his life. It says, so there's a line in the letter, Paul's letter to the Romans, that just says, receive Invicem. So it seems to be pretty straightforward, just out there, just receive Invicem. Okay. Whatever. So here's how the Vita reads into that line. It says, It's worthy of note that the Blessed Paul had a certain distinguished disciple whom he wished to place in the religious life, that's what we said, so that he might serve God and be freed from the shipwreck of this world, who was called Invicem. But the monastic brothers, contemplating the fact that he proposed to enter, argued to Paul against the ways and deeds of the aforesaid Invicem, because they found this passage already to hand in the Gospel of Matthew that says, they shall hate Invicem and betray Invicem. So they said, like, this is like some kind of a prophecy or something. I don't really know. I don't want it. I don't want any part of this. Anyway, so there's that. That's weird. Paul,
I'm scratching my head. This is bizarre.
It's very strange. Yeah. But it does. I mean,
I'm predicting some kind of linguistic bullshittery because you've done this kind of.
Jacob, I would never do that. Kyle, would I ever do that? The answer is no, I wouldn't. Don't answer. I answered for you. It's a sign of love and respect to replace my voice with yours. And
definitely not the aforementioned narcissist personality.
Definitely not. Isn't it so weird how everybody's just a psycho except for me these days? It's just crazy.
Yeah. And I have to answer for everyone and order for everyone at dinner.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible. Yeah, it's like nobody even knows what what they want to eat. It's the worst. Anyway, so Paul in First Thessalonians also tells the community there, I guess Invicem's like kind of depressed at this point, and it says, comfort and edify Invicem, which is cool, so that's cool. It does get confusing though, because the strand of it in Paul makes sense. Like you can track this into a life, but the more you look in the scriptures, the more that things get confusing, because it says St. John in the book of Revelation, now it seems like Invicem has been slipping him bribes because the book of Revelation actually just tells people, just send gifts to Invicem. Just do it. Just what are you supposed to do with Invicem? I don't know, just send him gifts, which now it feels like this feels like Jimmy Buffett advertising. And but he also gets slandered.
Send him giant flip-flops.
Yeah, send him giant flip-flops
all over the world.
He also gets slandered, because there's a line in Mark about how the women were always speaking to Invicem, and so it's like, okay, this guy's like a ladies' man and all this sort of stuff. And then when St. Paul and the guys crash land on Malta, and then this group of Maltese are like, hey, what's up? Let's they're all friends, and they build a campfire on the beach, and they're like, let's have a beach party with Saint Somewhere.
Let's drink margaritas.
Let's invent the margarita and then drink a bunch of them. Drink too many, and then let's invent the IV drip, and it's going to be great.
We should make a resort out of this. What the heck?
Yeah, exactly.
Good idea.
And anyway, at some point they start slandering Invicem, and they say, they said to Invicem, undoubtedly, this man is a murderer. You think what the heck is this?
What?
So you're like, who is this? Who is this Invicem? And it's just weird because he, in the end, his life is just kind of lame. And then he just the veto is just and that was that. Well, my friends,
I'm bracing myself for it. I'm bracing myself for the bullshit.
Because this is definitely... No, it has nothing to do with that. No, it has nothing to do with that. I am just saying that in Latin, Invicem means one another.
I swear to God.
Same
I want
thing.
to just kill you.
Come up with a better joke.
You know what?
You did this last year.
No, I didn't. It's a different
Damn
thing. Last time it was Nemo, and the jokes were a lot better, actually. It's Invicem.
Last year.
The best part about this is that Saint Invicem and the lives of Saint Invicem are literally a fanfic of Saint Nemo. Gentle listener who didn't listen to 3 hours about fake saints last year, Saint Nemo, this is a very similar story, only Nemo, they're extremely convincing. Actually, the passages about Saint Nemo are extremely convincing because the word just means no one. it's like really, really great.
They say things like Nemo is stronger than God.
Yeah, exactly. Nemo is stronger than God.
Is holier than everyone.
Yeah.
It's like no one is stronger than God. Yeah, you led us down this rabbit hole the last time.
It's
you
amazing.
Scammed us.
And so basically, like, this was so this became such a, like, people jammed out on this so hard that then, like, you know, sometime later, somebody was like, "Oh, I could do that. I could do the same thing. That's not so hard. That Nemo thing, I can do that too." And then he wrote like, what do we got? We got. I know we got Saint Inbachem. But the problem is, like, it's actually much more limited. You know, like, you can't do anywhere near as much with Inbachem as you can do with Nemo. And like the passages aren't as tight, you know, so you don't have anything like Nemo is greater than God, you know, which is really amazing. But they did it anyway, and I love that. It's like the sophomore album, like the sophomore slump of like medieval parody texts. So like,
oh, I can see that. All right.
Like, all right, that's really not, you know, Shrek 2 was really not as funny as Shrek 1.
That's not true at all, actually.
You know what? Puss in Boots
Kyle's
2
been
was
so
really
silent this whole episode, but Kyle's like, "Apps, I will not stand for bashing Shrek 2.
You crossed the line at Shrek 2.
It was so much better than the original. Everyone knows that. You know that. I know that. Everyone
It's
knows
not that it's better. They're both good equally. There's never been a bad Shrek movie.
He loves all his children equally. There have been bad Shrek movies. Yes, there have. Shrek the Third was terrible.
Puss in Boots 20 or whatever the one currently in theaters is.
The new Puss in Boots actually slaps hard. I will say, I saw it. It's great.
Shrek 5.
It's really, really good.
All I can say is that
cinematic masterpiece.
my nieces and nephew saw it and they hated it, and they gave me an extremely convincing. My niece, who's 10, gave me, no joke, it felt like it was incredible. I mean, it's incredible. I was like, wait a second, there's other people who do this. She gave me, no joke, a 5-point breakdown of like what's wrong with the concepts of the film and why the things that it's trying to
that's pretty sick.
Why the morals that the film is trying to teach are like heavy-handed and useless. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is amazing. This is like, I do this. I mean, I'm not 10, but like, but it was so incredibly refreshing to know that other people could do it too, especially to hear it from your 10-year-old niece. So yeah, there it is.
Yeah, it's so nice to know that other children are growing up as jaded as you and I once did.
Yeah. All right, Kyle, do you have other thoughts besides my cruel deriding of Shrek 2 on Saint Inbachem?
Yeah, on Saint Inbachem or on Saint Somewhere, because these two are being pitted against one another.
Yeah, do I have to pick one now, or is it at the end?
No, you have to pick one now out of these two.
Oh, that's true, you do.
And then
you do. That's how science works. I mean, sports.
In order to progress forward. So you got to give us your hot takes, and then you got to choose one.
And how many Saints do you guys have? You have 2 each?
There's one more round.
Yeah, we have 2 each this year. Because last year we fundamentally misunderstood what a Final Four meant.
Yeah.
And we each chose 4.
Yeah.
Because that's how bad we are at sports.
Yeah. We technically did.
This year we actually each chose 2.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, no, it's supposed to come down to 4, right? Like it's supposed to be a bracket, but we didn't. We couldn't.
Yeah, we didn't do a full
I don't
bracket.
even know how.
Yeah. So anyway, we each chose 2 this year because we didn't want to do another 3 hours.
Right. Let me think.
This silence is great radio.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
I don't know. I don't have any metrics. This is 100% feeling. I'm going with Saint Somewhere. What an incredible journey you had to endure. And
I really suffered.
You did.
Your feet suffered. Yeah. Your devotion to the one God suffered.
Yeah.
Your wallet suffered.
My wallet suffered most of all.
Yeah. So I
personally, I would have been mad if you didn't select Saint Somewhere, because I feel like Father Gabriel played us by doing the same bit.
I did.
Second year.
I did. Hey, but listen, that's
like,
this is how a sophomore slump works. If you know it, if you're looking right at it and you do it, That's, yeah. Like the band 311.
Fool
I think
me
was it
once.
311 or was it? Anyway, there was
I never knew whether to call them 311 or 311, to be honest with you.
Yeah, who knew? That's because you didn't listen to them enough, because in their much less popular second album, they say their own band name a lot, because they're fundamentally not a very good band. But yeah, anyway.
What if I told you they're like huge fans of this podcast and you just broke their hearts?
Sorry, 311, honey, I have something to tell you. You were never a very good band, but you did have one very nice song that was really fun. And congratulations, because I never had one nice song that was very fun. But you're a bad band, and just go home. All right.
There you go.
There it is. So we've voted for Saint Somewhere. We've consoled a forgotten band from the late 90s. And I don't know about you, but I feel ready for round
another
two.
Potential sponsor down the drain.
Or maybe actually they'll appreciate our honesty, and they'll give us all of the McDonald's gift cards that are left over from their fame in the late 90s.
There you go.
Wait, did they do a thing with McDonald's?
No, I mean, it's just like, their money's got to be all gone, but like, I'm sure they got gift cards and stuff.
I see. Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. That's exactly what I was going for.
This episode has real legs on
cool.
it. This episode has good energy. I'm here for this.
We really doing it.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Kyle, do you have any other thoughts here, or should I move on to my second one?
Let's keep it rolling. All right. Rolling. Limp Bizkit.
I do
see
that's
also a great band.
That's also a terrible band from the late 90s, but they apparently have not stopped making music, which is extremely confusing.
It's still going.
No, I think we should have a Created Things music festival. Jimmy Buffett,
Limp Bizkit,
311, Limp Bizkit.
Yeah, I respect that.
And that's actually a perfect transition into my next fake saint.
Is it Saint Anger
which also
from Metallica?
It is not. It is not. Oh man, I should have done.
That's my fake saint.
I should have done Sinter Slash from South Park when they find out that Slash doesn't appear in malls for real. That he's just like that your parents are actually Slash.
Yeah,
and your parents are actually the guitarist for Guns N' Roses. And
that's amazing.
Slash is based on a 2nd century Dutch saint called Sinter Slash. Yeah, I love that. My God.
All right. Let's go.
Yeah, no, but my saint is actually, it comes from another band. And this saint I can't claim total credit for, because when we posted Fake Saints last year, we actually got a number of people telling us we forgot to talk about this one. This was a fan requested Fake Saint. We've talked a lot about shitty 90s bands, and I want to take a time machine back to the when the 90s really ended, which was of course the early 2000s. And nope, it was.
Nope.
And you'll know what I mean when I say what I'm about to say, which is 9/11, it happened. It was a bad thing. The war in Iraq, also a thing that happened, also not great. And the people who were most impacted by these tragedies were not the people killed, were not the many people caught in the crossfire of war. The people most hurt, in fact, by these devastations were wealthy white teenagers.
Fair.
They were really the most affected, and should I say the most disaffected, in fact. And during this time, they only had one group that really understood them, one group that really could see into their heart of hearts and understand their pain. And that, my friends, was of course Green Day. Green Day.
Fair point.
Played throughout Hot Topics across the country. And actually, Kyle, I want your thoughts on this, because I believe, didn't you work at a Hot Topic for like a while?
No, not a while. I worked there.
Only 10 years.
Only 10 years of my life. No, I worked there for like a Christmas season.
Oh, okay. The best time to wear. I like to imagine Kyle is like that 50-year-old guy with gauges who works at Hot Topic and be like, it's not cool anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, they always sell Disney stuff now. This is bullshit. So yeah, Green Day played throughout every Hot Topic in America. They came out with an album called Jesus of Suburbia.
Oh dear. Oh, this is
with this album?
This is after I broke up with Green Day. That's wow. That's
wait. Did you have a Green Day phase?
Oh my gosh! Of course I did. All the way up through and
oh my god! Please tell me everything about your Green Day phase.
Through and including Nimrod, and then I was out. But like. Yeah, in the early,
you just grew out of it, or was there like a time where you finally went like, "Oh, this sucks"? Actually,
I think I just kind of grew out of it. I mean, I was obsessed with the album Nimrod, although Dookie was like my first introduction to like it was to like whatever anything kind of remotely contemporary in music, and it was amazing. I mean, yeah, for me, for like years and years and years,
discovered music through Dookie.
That was sort of like the album for me that represented like something that was like kind of scary but like really cool that was happening in music. It was kind of edgy because at that time they actually had a bit of an edge, you know. They were were considered kind of like rock or punk by people who didn't know what those terms meant. But they did actually have like a real edge to them at that point, you know, and which by the time that you get to Nimrod, it's just a lot of like intentionally creating a song that's going to be played at every 8th grade graduation until the end of time, you know, kind of situation.
JCPenney music.
JCPenney music. Thank you. Yes, that's exactly right. And then I just kind of lost track of them. And then I realized like, I think it was during lockdown or something in among other endless escapades, discovering that like they've just like kept making music in the meantime, and I listened to a couple of their songs, and they're just like, it's not that there was like a straight like a direct line down from like Nimrod down to other things. It's like, well, they made that album, which is already, if you liked anything to do with like 90s kind of pop punk, it was already kind of embarrassing, but like also fairly listenable. It was like they took that and then just like jumped right off a cliff
into Jesus of Suburbia.
Tell me more, or less, but more.
Which tells the story. The whole album works as a it's a
narrative. Concept album.
Yes, it is. And the story is, and man, you want to get into what fake saints represent about a given culture. There's kind of nothing, there's no better example than this here because in this album, we follow this character, Jesus of Suburbia, who, if you look, I guess, at the music videos, there's like a conversation between him and his mom where she says he's like laying on the couch depressed all day. And she says he's crucified himself on the couch that he's dying for his parents' sins.
Beautiful. Because yes, rich white kids love that. They love that stuff.
Yes. And Jesus of Suburbia is in love with a sort of manic pixie dream girl type, a sort of Beatrice character, a woman on a pedestal who can keep him inspired. And she goes totally not sexistly by the moniker of what's her name. And at some point, Jimmy, or not Jimmy yet, sorry, Jesus of Suburbia becomes estranged from her and gives into his anger and becomes his alter ego, his party drug driven alter ego, Saint Jimmy of Suburbia.
Oh my gosh.
That is my contribution to this.
I think I was
fake saint.
I was going to say part of me just died, but I think I'm not. Maybe all of me just died. Am I alive? Am I breathing?
But all of you will rise again, just like Jesus of Suburbia, because this concept was then combined with the American Idiot album to create, I previewed it already, kids, you knew what you were in for, the jukebox musical, the Broadway experience, Green Day's American Idiot, the musical.
What? This really happened?
Yeah, you got out of that fandom right on time because they had a Broadway musical. And in the Broadway musical,
nothing is
three
more
boys.
punk rock than starting a musical, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty.
Nothing.
I think it's pretty.
Nothing
especially
at all.
like a $500 million Broadway musical. Like I think that's pretty punk.
Yeah.
Right. So they really elaborate on this narrative of St. Jimmy in this. St. Jimmy is fully this high school kid's id come to life. It's his alter ego unleashed. It's all of his anger. It's all of his rage at it says St. Jimmy is the combination of his father's rage and his mother's love.
Beautiful.
And St. Jimmy has been released by party drugs, and he rails and he writes his name in blood on school mirrors.
Seems edgy. Whose blood though?
I don't know.
Seems
presumably
relevant.
Jesus of Suburbia's blood. Here's what I like and hate about this. I think it is sort of interesting looking at this too deeply in the way that I love to do. I do think it's interesting that like Jesus of Suburbia for them is this character where like he's angry at sort of the establishment. And he is suffering because of the sins of the middle-class suburban parents. And there's all these sort of heavy-handed, ham-fisted illusions there. But ultimately he like is a loving person. Like his anger and his love coexists. And it is out of love that he wants to take apart the system, man. But Saint Jimmy is like the person who once Jesus of Suburbia has died within him, takes over and is just anger, is just wrath, is just intensity and zealotry, right? And by the end of the musical, Saint Jimmy has died. They kill him. He kills him by recommitting himself to his love for what's her name.
Oh, stop.
And Jimmy and Jesus of Suburbia is resurrected. And then on stage, the entire cast comes back out and plays Time of Your Life.
Of course.
On acoustic guitars all together, which was recorded anew every single night and gifted to all the audience members as a digital download so they could forever have their version of Time of Your Life.
So they could relive 8th grade graduation.
Right, exactly.
That's beautiful.
That's actually a pretty
interesting
interesting concept, though.
It is an interesting concept.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stupid, but it's an interesting concept.
The only part I liked about that was that they recorded the live version and you got like a digital copy. That everything else I hated.
That's pretty. Yeah, the song itself is dumb, but
that's a cool idea.
The concept of that technique is a cool thing. I don't know. There's something I mean, it's not like I like any part of this. I never actually went through a Green Day phase. I think I was the only one of my friends who did.
Oh, sad. Yeah. Okay.
Me either.
I think the only song I ever downloaded was 21 Guns. I think
that was already in their decadent crappy phase. Sorry.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, but by the time I kind of got into them, because you're a little older than me, and by the time I got into them, like they were already had T-shirts of them at like Walmart, and it's like if you're selling T-shirts of a punk band at Walmart, like that's not cool.
They stopped being that with Nimrod, and then like with American Idiot, they just jumped on the like, you know who sucks, President Bush bandwagon, and then they like combined that with the sort of like kitsch, like sort of emotional pop that they had voice that they had developed with Nimrod, and so you had this like kitsch emotional pop like George Bush is the devil, and like it was I don't
know why you're saying that like a bad Iggy Pop impression, but I hear what you're doing. Why is George Bush coming up so much today? Because not only for this, but I also was thinking of him whenever you present to us Saint Ichiban or whatever the hell you called him. Because I was like,
Ichiban.
Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on me also, or whatever. I forget how George Bush like hacked that.
Oh, that's so good.
Remember how he did that?
I like everything about that, except that I think what I'm confused by is that you said every night the musical that they would record that version of Time of Your Life and give it. But the way that you said it made it sound like the musical played more than once, which I'm really confused by.
Oh yeah, for a long time.
Wait, but you're not kidding.
Not long enough to be successful. Not long enough to be successful, but like I can pull it up, but I think like a good year or two.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. How did that not literally close like on opening night?
I mean, they played, I remember very clearly as a child watching a topic we've also discussed in here, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
The Macy's Day Parade.
When they show the Macy's Day Parade, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And they performed a live song from this. Like the cast came on. I think they did Time of Your Life.
Of course they did.
At the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Yeah, it ran for a year. So it launched April 20th of 2010 and it closed April 24th of 2011 after 422 performances.
That's deeply disordered.
Green Day did not appear in the production, but vocalist and guitarist Billy Joe Armstrong performed the role of St. Jimmy by surprise occasionally throughout the run. He would just show up and play that id character.
Wow, that's...
I don't know. I mean, it's dumb, obviously, but like if we're going to be super philosophical and like culturally analytic about it, as again, we like to do, all of the saints last year had this thing where like, or many of them had this thing where they represented something about how the culture was responding to spirituality. And like for me, being a Christian person, like this description you open the episode up with, where you're talking about saints as people who really love God and like try to follow after him, that resonates, right? Like that was my understanding of kind of sainthood, right? But with this, it's like, no, Jesus in this idea, like their version of this Jesus character, this messianic character, is rebellious and stuff, but he like has love in his heart and he's balanced. Where a saint to that Jesus is like the more radical, more zealous, less balanced, less justifiable one. And I find that kind of like an interesting take, because I don't know that I've heard that take anywhere else. Like, you know, Jesus is to saints as like the well-balanced guy is to the guy who takes it too far. I've never really kind of thought of that schema or trope before. I don't know. Does that make sense to either of you at all?
Yeah, I mean,
No.
It's an interesting proposal for what might be going on there. My assumption is that it's a little bit more like when you have like a Japanese anime and like one of the characters is like named Trinity and has to murder somebody named God the Father or something, and they have like a gun named the Holy Spirit or these kinds of things, which is not, I mean, I'm making that up because I don't know the specific case, but like this kind of thing happens very frequently. And like,
don't lie, you're a huge fan of Warrior Nun Aurelia. It's like your favorite
Warrior Nun. And like Aurelia. Yeah. So basically, like you would say in like snooty speech, they're empty signifiers. Like you've taken the words and then just dumped, like just spent some time really just dumping absolutely all the meaning out of it, and then you just put them in whatever context you want, and like they have a certain kind of cachet just because the words sound familiar, you know. And so like I sort of suspect that culturally what's happening here is that like, well, you've got Jesus. Why is he Jesus? Well, because Jesus says love each other. oh, we could have him like crucified on a couch. That would be so cool because he's just like depressed or whatever. Okay. And then like, well, what other things about with Jesus? Saints. Okay, good. So we can have a saint. He's just kind of bad or whatever. I suspect it was no more elaborated than that. So it's just essentially like an empty signifier version of like what is.
How dare you imply that Billy Joe Armstrong did not put a ton of thought into this?
Well, I think that he may also have been under the influence of his enormous imagination. Just
his own imagination.
His own imagination.
Kyle, as the only person here who's worked for a really long time at a hot topic, I'm not gonna keep doing it. You also said it's JCPenney's music, and you worked at JCPenney's too. I mean, you basically lived in a mall.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Everything you're wearing right now is from stores that you've worked at personally. But I don't know. I mean, you probably had to listen to Green Day 24/7 for a long time. Do you think I could possibly have a point, or do you think Father Gabriel's right that this is just vapid nonsense?
No idea, dude. I'm so sorry.
No, you don't have to be sorry.
Clutch with the hot takes today.
Billy Joe Armstrong should be so sorry. That's a whole different thing.
I don't know. I'd have to listen to like
that record, which don't do that.
Don't want to do. I'm not a fan of Green Day at all. I don't know. Maybe their earlier stuff was like fine. Not really a fan though. Yeah, I got lost. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I have no idea what's happening right now.
Okay,
but since it's Green Day, I hate it. So there you go.
All right,
that answers your question.
I'm taking unfair advantage of that, and I'm jumping onto my guy. Is that all right?
I'm unbiased. I'm unbiased.
Good. Unbiased in my favor. Good. Okay. we need a good like sports a sports atmosphere here. So this is kind of more like, like, I don't know if you've ever seen like a boxing, but like in a boxing, like when they come out, and like the announcers like talking about their, like saying their name and all this, and everyone, it's the whole thing, and like everyone's
weighing in at 290 pounds.
Yeah, and then like and then at the corner, this people are screaming, so I'm gonna say this. So you imagine that, the crowds, people are screaming, there's lights, lights and flash cameras going off. So it's his name. You love to hate him. Crowds boo when they hear his name. And yet, my contender for round 2 of the Fake Saints Final Four is Pontius Pilate.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Hold on. Bear with me. I said Pontius Pilate, and I meant it.
Green Day wins.
Green Day wins.
I don't like Green Day now.
You know what? This is not bias in my favor. This is bias against me. You're the worst.
Not even Pontius Pilate of Suburbia?
Of Suburbia, I know. It's the friggin' worst. So, bear with me. So, because the thing is, sure, he was bad. Okay, right. There's this portrayal in the Gospels where he seems to be kind of like a bad guy and is pretty directly involved in, crucifying the actual Jesus, which, I don't know if you've checked lately, but that's bad. Something you shouldn't do.
Because he didn't even do it on a couch.
Yeah, I didn't even do it on a couch. It wasn't crucified by his parents' indifference or whatever. Okay. Especially like in John, right? Like he has a lot more lines in John, and like they're not very favorable lines, and like he has these confrontations with Christ where he's kind of trying to threaten him, and it's just not working, and he just basically gives up, and then he lets Christ go he commands for him to be crucified, basically. Okay, great. So this all seems, I don't know, like things you shouldn't do. I confess, they seem bad.
Very, very not saintly things.
Yeah, they seem like things that would be a low candidate for a saint, Interestingly, there are other historical records of Pontius Pilate, other than the Gospels, that are actually pretty thorough. So the Jewish historian Josephus and the Jewish philosopher and theologian Philo both also give accounts of
Philo the philosopher.
Yeah.
It sounds like a children's show.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen. Hey, it's not my fault he spoke Greek. It does.
Philo the philosopher and Bakey the baker.
Yeah, it's true. It does kind of mean the lover. Like he was a lover. It's just his name just means he was a lover. Yeah. He was a lover. He loved everything, especially Sophia. Anyway, but they actually agree with the accounts of Pontius Pilate in the scriptures, which again is bad as a campaign strategy for Pilate being a saint, because the portrayal is pretty bad. He was made procurator in 26 AD. He's removed in 36 for mismanagement. So even you think, considering him as an administrator, this seems that he was not well received. The kind of first major church historian, Eusebius, who writes in the very beginning of the 4th century, he says, so he talks about Pilate for a while, and he says that he committed suicide, which is also not really pushing this cause very much farther. In fact, it's actually thought that that's a fairly credible account of how he may have ended his days. So, okay, fine. All right, so we know all that. But what if I told you that he was a martyr and that his feast day is June 25th?
I would not believe you, because this is an episode called Fake Saints.
I feel like that's, you know what, I do feel like we're kind of giving the game away. What if we had like an over under kind of thing, like how much over under, like real saint, fake saint, like maybe we should do that next time. Is have a guess.
Top 4, are they real or are they fake saints?
Yeah, exactly. Like hot or not, but for saints.
That could be a fun, you have to guess. Like you present 2 saints and then either of you have to guess,
is this person real or not? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're coming up with an awful lot of ideas, Kyle, for someone who doesn't like to be on this podcast.
I work here.
I just work here. Just like Hot Topic.
Okay.
Too many hot topics.
I'm not ashamed of my Hot Topic experience.
I bought a shirt from Hot Topic once. It was on discount. It was great. It was from an even more failed 90s band that I liked for a couple of years. Anyway,
what band?
Ironically, the band's name was called Failure. In fact, it was prophetic. Oh. It was prophetic. Yeah. Okay. So Tertullian, who dies in like 220, in a book that he wrote in 197, he says this about Pilate. Actually, he says this whole story of Christ, so the crucifixion, everything, was reported to Caesar, at that time it was Tiberius, by Pilate himself in his secret heart, already a Christian. So Tertullian, who died in about 220, he wrote in a book that he that's from about 197. He says this about Pilate. He says, this whole story of Christ, so the crucifixion, resurrection, all that, was reported to Caesar, at that time it was Tiberius, by Pilate himself in his secret heart, already a Christian. You think, okay, not sure where that's coming from. But there are other early sources that talk about that. So there's a 4th century, we call it like a Gnostic gospel, or like a non-canonical gospel called the Gospel of Nicodemus, that is also called the Acts of Pilate. That's preserved in Coptic and Syriac and Armenian and all kinds of, which is to say the historically speaking, the also ran languages, so that it wasn't broadly received. That accounts that talks about Pilate believing in the resurrection, and that he was forced into the crucifixion by the Jews. That they sort of outfox him.
Oh, so this is this is one of them anti-Semitic fake saints.
Well, it's certainly against the Jews. Yeah. Yes.
I forgot to say Saint somewhere in St. Jimmy of Suburbia. Also huge Nazis. This is a Nazi episode.
Huge against the Jews. So weird. Yeah. St. Jimmy of Suburbia probably is though. Anyway, yeah. And, but then the kicker here where, there's another text. Again, there's actually a surprisingly large number of threads kind of in this little sort of tapestry thing. But there's also maybe 4th, maybe 5th century text that we have in Arabic and in Greek, in fact. So, which is to say the version we have is really late. The version we have is from the 12th century. But anyway, called The Handing Over of Pontius Pilate. And there, that text is really confusing because basically the emperor is like all in a panic because of the crucifixion of Christ, because he also, ? Appears to already believe that Christ was God. He's just not happy about it. And the text is really weird because basically Pontius Pilate is now like extremely convinced Christian, and he's like witnessing about Christ to the emperor, but who also believes that Jesus is God, but he just thinks that's bad. And then the emperor, because Pilate crucified Christ, he has Pilate executed because you shouldn't kill God. But in any case, that's has him considered to be a martyr. And then the story goes that he is then buried in Christ's tomb, at the empty tomb. Yeah. So this is like this is a big thing. And so this all sounds kind of weird.
Where's the bullshit? I'm just waiting for the bullshit.
Well,
sitting here.
The Ethiopian and Coptic Orthodox churches take it and run with it, and they celebrate his feast to this day on June 25th.
Oh, wow.
That is so. This is
well. Now I feel
this is real.
Now I feel problematic.
Yes, now I am conflicted in my sense of cultural sensitivities, because this seems very anti-Jewish, which, spoiler alert, it is. But it is actively practiced he is actively practiced and proposed as a real saint in the actually real Ethiopian and Coptic Orthodox churches through unto the present day. It's worth noting that this whole thing is just actually really complicated, because it's not like there's a historical development. Like, people start thinking like, oh, Pilate sucks, he's the worst, and then like over the next like 300 years they're like, actually Pilate was awesome, and you know who really sucks is, like, I don't know, the Jews or something. And then they like try to make Pilate look good to make the Jews look bad. It's I mean, that is clearly happening in the texts where Pilate is looking good. They're clearly moving the blame, you know. But in fact, like, this is always a very minor sub theme among like a bunch of. It's like a subreddit with like some weird trolls playing around, you know. And like, this is never accepted. You know, in the 2nd century, the 3rd century, the 4th century, like, no, this is not broadly represented. It's not broadly accepted. So there's huge disagreement with it in every period. But interestingly, you know, like so like, I am proposing this normatively, and I'm perfectly happy to say it, you know, like, this is a fake saint. And I can say, like, I think it's bad to think of this man as a saint. That being said, there are like very old Christian communities that revere him as a saint, that follow this very, 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 you know, they follow the subreddit from the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th century, according to which he would be a martyr. So they follow this like very edgy, very emo, like you've never heard of it, it's so cool, sub history, and work with that. So like, they have a devotional practice to him, which is all super wild. He's a fake saint, you know, like, the bro's not a saint, you know. Interestingly,
no historicity for any of that at all.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Interestingly, so thinking about like how this kind of plays out in contemporary art, there's a kind of overcorrection, interestingly, in the contemporary, like the current Passionsspiel, the Passion play at Oberammergau, which is very interesting. But just to stick to what's most relevant here, so of course Oberammergau and the Passion play, which has been going on since the 17th century, there. Obama's gal. It's Obama's gal. It's fine. It was notorious for a long time.
We're doing all the presidents today, man.
Exactly. It was notorious for a long time for its depiction of Moses and the Jews. In ways that are.
Wait a second. Something in Germany was not okay with Jewish people.
I don't know where you're getting this from.
I'm stunned.
I don't know where you're getting this from.
I'm baffled.
I'm calling me baffled.
That's never happened before or since.
It's okay. Well, I'm not gonna have an episode on it, but we'll talk later, Jacob. We'll talk later.
Okay.
So the current director of the Passion play, he crafted a version that, so the text is really old, but there's been a text of the play that's been handed down for a long time. Some interesting portions of which you really can't. They have a depiction of Jews that nobody would want to present publicly. It's kind of too far over the line. Even as a historical piece, it's just too far over the line. So the current version that's playing now, or that in this cycle, is pretty significantly altered. Actually, very little of the original text is left. And so the director of it, who's basically almost an author too, because it's almost a completely new composition in terms of the text itself. His name is Christian Stückel. That's a delightful name, Stückel. But so he was very intentionally designing the new Passion play to be like very attentive to Jewish concerns and all of this. And he's won all kinds of awards for all of this. One effect of this is that the actual plot of the Passion play in Oberammergau, at least this year, 2022, was that the only villain, and I do mean literally the only villain in the entire story is Pontius Pilate, who plays the Jewish leaders like a harp, who is dead committed from the beginning that he's going to crucify Christ, for reasons that's never really accounted for why he's so dead set on that. But well before the trial, he shows the writ of execution that he's already written, and all this kind of stuff. So it's very clear that and frankly, it's clear in the plot that that anybody else who participated in the crucifixion was duped. Thought that they were doing good things and were duped by Pontius Pilate. So
fascinating. Yeah.
So it's a really, there's a lot to say about it. It's, I think it's fair to call it an overcorrection because that deviates from the text of the Gospels and the characterization of Pontius Pilate that we have from other historical sources every bit as much as the Saint Pontius Pilate characterization does. And so it seems like a problematic overcorrection. But it's just, so I guess I just, but it's also really interesting though, that your conception of who Pontius Pilate is actually going to play a really significant role in everything about the scene guilt, responsibility, individual guilt, whether you think there's such a thing as collective guilt, power, colonialism, like all this is very much in play in Strickland's version. Like how you consider how you look at the figure of Pontius Pilate, whether you think he is a saint or the worst villain, does actually radically determine who you think Christ is, and how you like live with Christ. So I propose to you, rather a serious, but also a deeply weird and like really worth engaging final fake saint.
And kind of upsetting. I feel like it's a kind of an upsetting fake saint on a lot of different levels. Doesn't upset me as much as American Idiot the musical, but it still does upset me.
That is a very interesting one. Yeah, very upsetting. So while you were talking, I decided to write my metrics down.
Yes, metrics.
You know,
objective
just like
measures.
Oh wow, you actually have your wow.
Yeah,
Kyle's doing his job.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. So, number one, I think it's really two, but there is a third one. Number one, how much I liked it, and I did not like that a lot.
Fair.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm okay with the Jews. So
seems good. Seems like a good thing to be okay with.
Yeah, I'm actually not anti-Semitic, so you know, you picked a bad one for that, but also don't like Green Day.
Ooh, that's
What's
tough.
worse?
Yeah, I'm making you choose between two things you hate. Do you hate Nazis more, or do you hate Green Day more?
Oh man! All right, number two. We won't get into that. How long it took for the person to describe the saint? Because I get really bored really quick.
Nice, classy, respect.
And number three, which actually, looking back on it, is a pretty good metric, whether it was epic or not.
Ooh, fair point.
I gotta be honest. I'm gonna give it to Green Day.
Oh,
knew it.
I mean, they did.
Father Gabriel has been.
They did run for a year.
I liked it a lot less. Wait, a lot.
You didn't like it a lot less.
Yeah.
You disliked it less, which means you liked it more.
But neither of them were epic. So you both failed on that front.
Okay.
But you got passing grades.
Okay, but that means that
it comes down to you.
It's now just my saint against my saint. Father Gabriel has been completely booted from this competition.
I've been eliminated.
It's Saint Jimmy.
Yep.
It's Saint Jimmy versus Saint Somewhere.
It's got to be Saint Somewhere.
It's got to be Saint Somewhere.
Yeah,
we did it.
Margarita.
The failed musical beat out over the other failed musical.
I forgot.
Honestly, isn't that crazy?
That's amazing.
Yeah, two jukebox musicals. Both of my saints had jukebox musicals.
Well, you know what? Listen, next time I'm gonna keep notes for the whole year about like step 1, pay attention to joke musicals. Step 2, learn saints that have jukebox musicals.
Isn't Obergommer kind of a musical?
Oh, it is a musical. Yeah. But it's original music.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So technically your fake saint, but technically your fake saint also has a musical.
That's true. So technically three of our 4 saints today had musicals. So
and just to note for your future, another metric that will be added next year is whether a musical is attached to it.
Is that a pro or a con though? I can't decide.
That's a con. That's a big con. If it has a musical attached to it, it goes way down.
Well, it was tough. This was a tough section.
Metric alone. Yeah, by that metric alone, I think Saint Ichiban or whatever should win. But I'm not going to fight it. I think Saint Somewhere is the clear victor here. I feel like my suffering at the spa really paid off.
Yeah,
I think that's true, and I also think the best part about that is that when you say my suffering at the spa, like that does not sound ironic to me.
Yeah.
It did sound great.
I get that.
I like the harm reduction aspect too, having the IVs for those who are, partaking too much. So,
Yeah, I want them to actually like do a little icon. I want to like offer to do a little icon of Saint somewhere and like put it up in their IV room. I think that's the next art that I'm going to try to like facilitate.
I think you should do it.
They'll love it. They'll love it. Just make sure that you paint it on top of a home goods painting.
Oh, that's a good idea. I like that.
Just as a custom home goods thing that you can sell for like $30,000.
His halo can be like an upturned margarita glass.
Oh my gosh, there it is. Do it. Yeah. Awesome. The worst.
All right, take us out of here, Kyle. Wrap us up.
This has been Created Things. Go forth and create created things.
You don't even know the end of our podcast, you bastard. Go do your job better than Kyle does. And with that, go forth and create cool things.
Created things.
Get out of here.
This has been Created Things, a production of Art, Soul, and Mind, hosted by Jacob Flores Popchek and Father Gabriel Toretta, produced by Kyle Meineke and Jessica Flores Popchek. Theme song by Federico Carranza. For more on this podcast and the artists featured, follow us on Instagram at Created Things Podcast and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever fine podcasts are streamed.